Hi everyone and welcome to Let's Talk to Supported Decision Making. This webinar is designed for disability service providers, but of course everyone is welcome. We're delighted to be collaborating with Multicap, who are part of the VertiView group, and today we're joined by Jessica Crossan and Trent Carberry. Okay, well, I'd like to officially begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of all the lands across Queensland on which we are gathered today. We are speaking to you from Meanjin, the lands of the Turrbal and Yagara people, and we pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander guests joining us today, and honour the First Nations people we support. My name is Rachel Meehan. I'm the Community Education and Engagement Officer here at the Office of the Public Guardian, also known as OPG. Joining me today are our special guests, Trent Carberry, Group Research Lead, and Jessica Crossan, Acting General Manager, Quality, Risk and Safety. Jess and Trent both work for the VertiView group, which I mentioned Multicap is a part of. Welcome to you both. Thanks for working with us on this webinar. Jess and Trent led Multicap's supported decision-making demonstration project, which the Office of the Public Advocate and OPG Queensland were delighted to take part in. Today, we're going to explore why supported decision-making matters. We'll help you understand the principles and how to assist people in making their own choices. Trent and Jessica will share insights from the supported decision-making demonstration project, and they'll provide you with some practical strategies and show you how to break down decisions, provide clear options and how to support individuals to make informed choices. We'll then allow time for answering your questions at the end and conclude with where you can go for more information. Okay, so a little bit about why we do supported decision making. Australia is a signatory to the UN Conventions on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and that sets out for us some expectations that we as a signatory will hold and apply. So this includes people's rights to make their own decisions, regardless of whether they have any sort of disability or diagnosis. Wherever possible, it's about providing people with the type of support that they might need to continue to make all of their own decisions. It's also about keeping people involved in any decisions and not removing them from that process, and continuing to assist them to express their will and preferences. In their final report, the Disability Royal Commission also recommended a rights-based framework, including the presumption of capacity. That is, everyone is presumed to have capacity to make decisions regarding their wills and preferences and rights. And there's a shift away from substitute decision-making to supported decision-making wherever possible. We're going to explore that in a little bit of detail now. So we've talked about the why. Let's now talk about what is supported decision-making. Well, it's all about empowering individuals to be actively involved in making their own choices with the right support tailored to their needs. That sounds like a bit of a fancy term, but at its core, it's all about helping people stay in control of their decisions and their lives. Before we can practically apply supported decision-making, it's important to first understand some of its principles. We need to start with the belief that everyone can make their own decisions. Most people just need information or support in the right way. Support, don't substitute. The supporter's role isn't to make decisions for the person. It's to guide the person in understanding what their options are, help them consider the possibilities and allow them to express what they want. Respect what matters most to them. Use their values, preferences and goals to guide the process. It's not about doing what we think best. It's about what the person is hoping to achieve and supporting them to do that. Balance dignity and safety. Explain the risks and consequences, but avoid control. A risky choice isn't the same as a wrong choice, but it may have implications. And the supporter's role is to help the person understand those consequences and what they might mean for them. And then most importantly, be flexible. Every person needs different support in different ways because every decision is different. So it's important that the support you offer them is the support they actually wish to receive, and it's how they wish to receive it. So this includes who they choose to support them for that decision. When we think about a person-centered approach, each of us could be on a spectrum of decision-making on any particular day. People may need different levels of support depending on their capacity or ability to make the decision, the complexity of the decision, and their individual circumstances. So independent decision making is when a person makes the decision for themselves. We may still need to ask for advice from others and do our own research, but ultimately the final decision rests with us. Supported decision making is about what we're here to talk about today. It's when a person receives help from trusted people to make a decision. And then substitute decision making is a last resort. Other people make the decision on the person's behalf. Even then, though, the person should still be involved as much as possible and their views, wishes, and preferences prioritised. Let's just take a moment now to reflect on substitute decision making. The role of the Queensland Public Guardian is to safeguard adults by promoting and protecting their human rights. This includes ensuring that individuals are supported to exercise their rights and make their own decisions wherever possible. The Public Guardian can be appointed as a substitute decision maker by the Queensland Civil and Administrative Tribunal, also known as QCAT, but only as a last resort for those who are unable to make decisions for themselves, even with appropriate support. So while this might be necessary in some cases to protect a person's well-being, it's a very restrictive option and it removes their legal right to make their own decisions. For this reason, adult guardianship and substitute decision-making should only be considered after every effort has been made to provide the person with the support they need to make their decisions. This approach aligns with OPG's commitment to uphold and protect their human rights. So we see now steps on the screen, and they outline the process that we go through when making a decision. Many of us do this subconsciously, depending on the decision, but by defining each step helps everyone involved to offer the right level of assistance while respecting the person's independence and control. These steps align with the 7 education modules created as part of the supported decision-making demonstration project, which Jess is going to go through in a bit more detail shortly. It's important to remember that this process can vary in time. Sometimes it can take a long time and be quite slow, and it can vary in complexity depending on the decision being made. It's not always a straightforward process. You can find that you might go around and around having discussions and move incrementally forward and then 2 steps back. Or you might jump from step 1 to step 3 and then back to step 1 again. So OPG have some tools and guides on our supported decision-making web pages on our website if you'd like further information on this. So I'd like to now welcome our guest speakers, Trent and Jessica. They've joined us to share insights from their supported decision-making demonstration project, which they collaborated on with OPG and the Office of the Public Advocate Queensland. The project marks a key step in empowering individuals with disabilities to make decisions that reflect their own preferences and values. Today, Trent and Jess will outline how this project demonstrates a practical, scalable model of supported decision-making as an alternative to guardianship. They'll cover the objectives, the key findings, the challenges and opportunities for service providers to adopt these practices. I'll hand over to you now. Thanks, Trent.
Thank you. So I'm from the VertiView Group. I'm the group research lead there. And the VertiView Group is a collection of human and social service providers that is has been brought together to amplify their pursuit of shared and enduring social impact. And Multicap is a leading disability services provider with more than 60 years experience within that VertiView Group. And we provide high quality, evidence-based, person-centered support to people with high and complex needs. Next slide, please. And we applied to work with the OPA and the OPG to run a trial of supported decision-making within Queensland. And you can see the goal of that project up on screen there. The idea is to see what level of control can we give people over their lives and make sure that if people have capacity to make more decisions with a bit of support, can we do that instead of having them under guardianship orders? And if you are interested in the final report from this project, there is a QR code up on screen there. So if you want to follow that, you can get a copy of that report. That will cover a lot of the material that we're going to cover today. Next slide. And so, a few objectives. We want to bring in people who were under guardianship, using a series of modules to teach them about how to make decisions and work out how supported decision making might work for them, to create a portfolio. And this was the idea of having a way of recording decisions that people were making and showing that there is a system by which you can make decisions that might make it a bit easier for people to sort of, go through that process, to try and get them to make more decisions within their lives and show that supported decision making can work with this population. Next slide, please. Now, a key part of what we wanted to do with this project, because it's a key part of pretty much every initiative that Vertiview and Multicap engage in, is to try and make what we do evidence-based. And so a big thing that we wanted to do was look at what's been done before in the space of supported decision-making within Australia. And so what we looked at was, a bunch of resources. The key reference that if you're sort of keen to sort of take away, hey, what's the one thing I should read that's not our stuff? I would suggest a paper by Bigby et al. From 2017 that looked at basically a bit of a meta-analysis of 6 other supported decision-making trials within Australia. And while we used a whole bunch of papers to, inform what we were doing, that was probably the key reference. So I'd point you towards that one. And yeah, like I said, having that evidence-based methodology was really important to us. Next slide. And a key part of that is the evidence sort of points us towards this, multi-step process where we want to look at the individual, work out what their capacity is, teach them about decision-making and what supported decision might look like. And then for each decision, go through a series of steps. And Jess is going to talk about these and the modules we developed for them in a bit. These should look pretty familiar because you just saw them as being from the OPG website. This is a very similar structure. So you start by exploring the decision, thinking about, hey, what do I want to do? What are the choices I might make? Get the right people in. So if I'm deciding where I want to live, maybe I ask one person. If I'm asking about my medical care, maybe I ask a different person. You'll have a circle of support, and that circle of support might vary depending on the nature of the decision. Once you've got your circle of support in place, it's time to think about what are the possible ways I can go with this decision and what are the consequences. So thinking about what are the risks, what are the benefits for each choice. Then step 4, actually do it. And then step 5, and this is a really important thing, and this is probably something that, everyone should do more of, is think back and look at the choice and go, okay, what went well? What didn't? Would I do the same thing again? Have a bit of a reflection period to go back and think about how did that process work for me? Am I happy? What will I do next time? And that helps them consolidate that knowledge and continue making good decisions. I'm going to pass on over to Jess now, and she's going to sort of talk you through those modules in a bit more detail.
Thanks, Trent. I'm now going to talk to and break down each step of supported decision-making process further, starting with step 1, so understanding the person's preferences. At the heart of supported decision-making is a simple but powerful concept. The person is always at the center of the decision. Everything we discuss today builds from that. In supported decision-making, the person is not just involved, they are the decision maker. That means we as service providers and support networks need to understand what matters to the person by understanding their values and preferences, what the person likes and dislikes, and how the person communicates and expresses their preferences and choices to those around them. Without this, we're not truly supporting decision-making, we're making assumptions on behalf of the person. A good starting point is identifying the person's likes and dislikes. Examples can include food preferences, daily routines, social activities, sensory preferences, and environments they enjoy and feel safe in. Demonstrating to the person that their individual preference matters builds rapport and confidence in the person's engagement throughout the supported decision-making process. What we may perceive to be small preferences are often the very choices that people with disabilities face barriers to communicating and having respected in their daily lives. Supported decision-making works best when we focus on one decision at a time. For example, instead of asking, what do you want to do this evening? Break it down to, what would you like for dinner? Then later, what would you like to do after dinner? Breaking decisions down will assist to reduce overwhelm, build clarity, and increase the person's confidence in engaging in decision-making. When the person communicates the decision feels too big, or you observe them struggling to engage and participate in decision-making, consider how you can break the decision down into smaller steps. For example, choosing a meal could involve hot or cold food, something familiar or something new, choosing between two meal options. This approach allows the person to engage and increases opportunities to communicate choice and control. Another important question to ask is, does the decision need to be made right now? Not all decisions are urgent, and considering time-based decision-making is important to the supported decision-making process. Time-based decision-making can reduce pressure, enabling processing time and improve the quality of decisions made. Sometimes the best support is simply allowing the person space to process the decision at hand. A critical part of supported decision-making is understanding the person's individual preference of communication style. This includes verbal communication, written communication, pictures or visual prompts, videos, auditory methods, and gestures or modeling. There is no right way to communicate. Understanding how the person functionally communicates is critical to engaging the person and ensuring that their voice is heard throughout the supported decision-making process. As supporters, our role is to adapt to the person, not the other way around. We should also consider time of day. When is the person most alert? Environment, where does the person feel happy, relaxed, and engaged? And sensory factors, such as noise, lighting, and distractions. These factors can significantly impact a person's decision-making ability. Knowing and understanding this information with the person as part of the supported decision-making process assists in creating consistent person-centered support. Next slide. Step 2, involving the right people is about bringing the right people together around the person to support their goals, choices, and decision-making opportunities. A circle of support identifies individuals and groups of people who come together to help develop and clarify a person's goals, support decision-making, promote a person's independence through capacity building, and have a genuine interest in positively contributing to the person's quality of life. Importantly, a circle of support creates a community around the person, with the person always at the centre. Think of a circle of support as more than just a meeting. It is a network of relationships. It acts as a space for problem solving, a source of practical advice, a place for creating and critical thinking, and a support system during times when the person is experiencing challenges and successes in everyday life. At its heart, it's about connection, belonging, and shared commitment to supporting the person's ability to have a voice in decision-making that affects their everyday life. You may hear circles of support referred to as networks of support or circles of friends. The name itself isn't important. What matters is that individuals and groups involved in the person's life come together intentionally, voluntarily, and with a shared focus and commitment to support the person. As humans, we rely on connection and relationships, and for many people with disabilities, these natural support networks don't always develop automatically. Supporting the person to identify and establish their circle of support assists them in building and strengthening their relationships and connections, and are especially important for people with disabilities who may be vulnerable. A circle of support can assist in reducing isolation, strengthening safeguards, promote community and social inclusion, and support informed and independent decision-making. Every person's circle of support is unique. They can vary in who is involved, how often they meet, how formal or informal they are, and what topics are discussed. An example of a circle of support is shown on the screen. In this model, the person is intentionally placed at the centre, with individuals and support networks arranged around them, ranging from those in their closest inner circle through to those in their broader outer circle. A strong network can make a significant difference to a person's confidence, safety, and quality of life. Step 3. Thinking about options and consequences involves exploring the decision in a structured and supportive way. This means helping the person to understand the options available and by communicating choices in an accessible format aligned with their preferred communication style. Consider possible outcomes related to the decision and identifying supports and safeguards when there is an identified risk associated with a specific decision. It's important that options are not limited unnecessarily and that the person is genuinely able to explore what is possible. A key part of supported decision-making is understanding what might happen next. Each decision option can have different consequences, including benefits, risks, short-term and long-term impacts. Our role as part of the person's circle of support is to support them to understand these consequences and reflect on what matters most to them. This process step of supported decision-making is not about removing risk entirely. It's about supporting the person to make informed choices as independently as possible. Risk is a normal part of life and is also part of the supported decision-making process. In the NDIS context, we need to balance the duty of care with the person's right to take risks, also referred to as dignity of risk. Supported decision-making recognises that people have the right to make decisions that involve risk. Our role is to support safe and informed decision-making, not to control or restrict the person. Once the person has identified their preferred option, the next step is to consider what supports or safeguards can we put in place. Safeguards are strategies that reduce potential harm to the person or others, increase confidence and motivation to engage in the supported decision-making process in the future, and support successful outcomes aligned with the person's values and preferences. Examples of safeguards might include additional support or supervision, trial periods or gradual transitions, clear contingency plans, skill building programs in both natural and contrived settings, or regular check-ins, debriefs, and review of safeguards to ensure they are working as intended. It is important that safeguarding supports are proportionate to the person's choice, least restrictive in nature and person-centered. Good supported decision-making truly demonstrates its value when the person's voice remains central, their rights are respected, and risks are acknowledged and managed. Step 4, making the decision real. Supported decision-making doesn't stop at choosing an option. It's about turning that choice into action and recognizing that decisions can evolve over time. Once the person has made a decision, the next step is to make the decision real. This means ensuring it is documented in a decision-making record and taking practical steps to implement the choice within the person's life. Documenting decisions in formats aligned with the person's preferred communication style helps to create clarity, promote accountability, and ensure continuity of support across different people and environments. A decision only has impact when it is put into action. As supporters, our role is to respect the person's choice, support implementation, remove barriers where safe and possible, and ensure the person has what they need to follow through on their informed decision. An essential principle of supported decision-making is, I can change my mind. Just like anyone else, the person may reflect on their decisions, have access to new information, or decide something isn't working as intended. Creating rapport and establishing a safe, supported decision-making environment where the person is enabled to change their mind without this being perceived as a failure is important. If the person wants to change a decision, we simply return to step 1 of the supported decision-making process. This includes re-exploring options, revisiting their preferences, considering new information available, and adjusting supports or safeguards. The process is flexible, repeatable, and ongoing, not fixed. Each decision, whether it stays the same or changes, helps build the person's confidence, skills, and self-determination. Over time, the person is likely to become more familiar with expressing their preferences, evaluating options, and making informed choices. Step 5, reflect on what happened. Reflection helps us learn from real-life experiences and continue to build stronger decision-making skills over time. Every decision we support the person to engage in provides a natural skills teaching opportunity. This includes decisions that worked well and those that don't go as planned. Learning from natural real-life consequences is essential while ensuring duty of care and dignity of risk is balanced. In supported decision-making, reflection helps the person build confidence and capability. Reflection doesn't just look backward, it also helps the person think forward into the future. By considering what worked and what didn't, the person can develop new ideas, highlight safeguarding strategies that worked well, explore different options, review their circle of support, identify better options for next time, and increase self-awareness and insight into their preferences, communication style, and environments that best facilitated informed decision-making. Supported decision-making is not just about making choices. It's about learning, building essential life skills and independence over time. By embedding the steps of supported decision-making and reflection into practice, we can empower the people with disabilities to build confidence, develop essential life skills, and exercise greater control, enabling them to live as independently and meaningfully as possible. Supported decision-making in practice. As part of the supported decision-making modules, participants also developed a portfolio of evidence through the demonstration project. This portfolio on the screen showcased how they applied informed decision-making in their everyday lives by following a structured, repeatable process. In this example, you'll see that each section of the form is closely aligned to the supported decision-making process steps, supporting the person to focus on breaking down one decision at a time. In this example, the participant's decision was related to deciding if they should see an occupational therapist and driving instructor to get their driver's license back after their car accident. I'll now hand back over to Trent, who will discuss Multicap's supported decision-making project's final report findings, challenges, and recommendations for service providers.
Thanks, Jess. So again, a really important part of this project to us was, while we started by looking for evidence, we want to finish the same way, by going through and seeing if we could put together some key findings, asking people how things went, sort of putting a bit of a survey out to sort of go through, talk to our participants about, hey, what went well. And so what we found was, overall, it seemed to work, that when you have personalized one-on-one circles of support around people, that can help them make decisions they previously might have had, some issues with. And having a toolkit there might help them overcome some of the things that they, like where they are not getting enough support to make decisions. Having that structure allowed them to become better at, working out what the risks and benefits were. And they expressed confidence in, their choices and what they did. Next slide. Some of the commentary was around the idea that no one had ever sort of really talked them through the idea that decision-making can be a process that you can learn. And so this was, like this project offered them an opportunity to learn that and work it out. And, they started expressing a lot more confidence around their ability to talk about the decisions they were making. And so they made decisions around all sorts of things, medical appointments, family activities, making various purchases. Every participant who was involved in the project was able to identify a circle of support and find people who they believed were the right people to be talking to about their decisions. And they were satisfied with the decisions that they had made in almost all cases. Next slide, please. There were some challenges, like there are for any project. First part was getting everyone on board with the idea of supported decision and making sure everyone really understood it. The next part, and this is a thing for future development, is this project was targeted at people who were able to read the resources and engage verbally with those resources and the people sort of running them through the modules. Something to think about for any future attempts at supported decision making will be making more accessible resources for people with sensory impairments. And obviously, we want to make sure that these support networks will last beyond just one project. Next slide. So what we want to look at is the idea of having supported decision-making tools and principles built into capacity building programs to increase that adoption. We want to see everyone who can make decisions with support making decisions. We want to have those networks surviving beyond any particular project. We want people to accept that, hey, supported decision making is just how things work now. And to have training for people so that they understand how to become parts of those circles of support. So those are the recommendations that came out of the project. Next slide. There we go.
Thanks, Trent. Thanks, Jess. The findings from the report, they're key to achieving our main goal, which is about empowering individuals to make their own choices. So service providers that are online today, we hope that this is a real opportunity for you to adopt supported decision-making practices. These practices not only align with the legislative reforms that we've talked about and the NDIS framework, but also highly relevant to improving outcomes for your clients. We do appreciate there's a lot of information out there about supported decision-making, and it can feel quite overwhelming, not just for the person needing support, but for families, support workers, networks trying to figure out the best way to help. Let's now have a chat with Jess and Trent about how supported decision-making works in practice. They've gone through with some of the methodology about how to apply it. It's not a scary or complicated process. It's something that we all do every day, often without even realising it. So I understand there were a number of participants in the project, and why don't we talk about KC's story, because her journey highlights the life-changing impacts of these approaches. Jess, can you talk us through a little bit about KC's background and what happened with her participation in the project?
I can do, yes. So Casey's story is truly one of resilience, challenge, and ultimately empowerment. After sustaining a severe brain injury in the 1990s, she faced ongoing and increasingly complex difficulties in managing and making informed decisions about her life. Casey experienced challenges with her appointed financial guardian at the time of her participation in the project. And she reported that this substitute decision maker created a lot of stress for her. She self-reported that her rent was not paid on time, leading to notices from her property manager, and reported that she was paying above market rent in a retirement village. Casey joined the supported decision-making demonstration project, with Multicap seeking change and support to take back control of her own life following her brain injury. Through this, she engaged and actively participated with the 7 educational modules, building her decision-making skills. She also, during this time, created a portfolio of evidence documenting her day-to-day decisions on the decision-making record, demonstrating her application of the supported decision-making process steps and gradually building her confidence throughout the duration of her time in the project with us. A major milestone for Casey was when she made the decision to move out of her retirement village, relocating to her uncle and grandmother's home. She was seeking both financial and emotional stability. Impressively, she organised every detail herself of this move, from purchasing a storage container, arranging removalists, and planning the packing and unpacking process. Her documented goals and decision-making reflected her application of the supported decision-making process and on her decision-making record at the time. While her frustrations with her financial guardian continued, she reported a more positive and supportive relationship with her public guardian. Shortly following Casey's participation in the supported decision-making demonstration project, she had a QCAT hearing and found the process quite overwhelming. Casey reported that she became emotional, and when recounting her experiences, she relied on her solicitor to talk on her behalf. Casey's QCAT hearing outcome was significant, resulting in revocation of both the public guardian and her financial guardian at the time. Casey's story shows the powerful impact of the supported decision-making process and how having the right tools, circle of support, and focus on autonomy can transform confidence, build essential life skills, and restore control, enabling her to lead her own life again.
Wow. Yeah, that's an impressive story, Jess. Thanks for sharing that. And obviously we've had Casey's permission to share that story. And we're protecting her name and her privacy there too. Casey obviously had the right supports in place for her to achieve her independence and seek revocation of her guardianship and administration. So, you know, that's really a fantastic outcome, but it might not always be the case for everybody. Maybe Trent, you could perhaps share some of the outcomes experienced by some of the other participants in the project and reflect on how supported decision making impacted them and their lives.
Sure. There are all sorts of decisions made by participants within the project. You know, some of them around things like purchasing, so things like buying gaming consoles or fishing gear and taking up fishing as a hobby, participating in family gatherings and choosing, hey, which family gatherings am I going to, medical appointments, you know, when am I going to it, how am I going to it, you know, learning to drive, all sorts of things. So people were making decisions with their circles of support around all sorts of things. And so as far as what that tells us about supported decision making, if we want to reflect a bit, so KC's story reflects a really significant outcome with the revocation of the guardianship order. That's a big deal. But it's really important to sort of reflect on that idea that every single decision that a participant made within the context of the SDM project was a decision that was made by them and not someone else. Every one of those decisions was important. That's a freedom that most of us take for granted, and this project was, you know, helping people get that level of freedom. And it's important to recognise that capacity is going to vary from individual to individual, and that capacity will vary within that individual over time and circumstance. So getting to that point where you might have a revocation of an order like KC, that might not be an appropriate situation for everyone. But also that shouldn't take us away from the idea that all of those decisions matter. All of those decisions are important to the individual because they are their decisions. And probably my usual take-home message for SDM that, you know, the one thing I want you all to remember, if you're going to remember one thing, I hope you remember lots. If you're going to remember one thing, SDM, supported decision making, it's a fancy phrase for something literally every single person does. You know, I can't see anyone in the audience, but, you know, hands up everyone who asked their parents when they bought their first car. Hands up everyone who talked to their spouse or a friend when they started a new job or like took up a new hobby, major purchases. These are things we all do. So supported decision making is not special. It is a thing everyone does. All we are doing is creating a system and a structure so that people with disabilities can engage in this process and have more choice and control over their lives. So that's my take-home message.
Great take-home message. Thanks, Trent. Just pretty much cover the next slide for us. I think that those messages are really important for people to reflect on and implement to help their clients every day. So hopefully by working together, we can create a more inclusive and supportive environment for our individuals with disabilities, ensuring they've got the autonomy and the support that they deserve. If you'd like more information, the resources that we've shared with you today, including a copy of the webinar, and I understand some of the sound wasn't great with the Luke's story, we will include all of that information in a link to our post-webinar email. So everything we've covered will be sent out to you in the coming week. Okay, so it's over to you all now. We would like to give you the chance to ask questions. Did the project lead to the development of tools to assist service providers engaged with PWD in SDM? Trent or Jess, did one of you want to take that one?
I might hand over to Jess on this one because Jess took the lead on the tool development. Just noting that the tools that we developed, there are tools out there that have been developed for a variety of trials. So I would encourage people, again, if you're super keen on supported decision making, to check out the evidence. There are a lot of publications and trials within Australia. Jess can talk specifically about our tools, though.
Yeah, so we did design some tools, and also through looking at the evidence base and some of those key resources that Trent spoke to a bit earlier in today's presentation. But overarchingly, we did have a facilitator guide for facilitators or people implementing and working with the person with disability in terms of how they go about providing and facilitating each of the education modules, which were also PowerPoint slides at the time. In addition to the facilitator guide, that's what worked best and enabled also the ability to engage participants online should they wish to have engaged. However, most of our participants, there were 6 of them, did prefer face-to-face facilitation of the modules, which was pleasing to see. We also did have the supported decision-making record, which you would have seen on one of the previous slides with that example around the person deciding if they wanted to obtain their driver's license back. So they were just overarchingly some key tools or resources, but yeah, that were aligned with each of the steps of supported decision-making. We can share some of those tools as well after the webinar if you're interested.
And Jess, were there any circle of support frameworks that you can share? Yeah,
we have some templates. So when we were talking a little bit earlier around involving the right people in the person's circle of support and those inner and outer circles, there's some templates as well that we worked with the participants to actually map out what their circle of support looks like, because they're unique to each person. So we can share some of those as well.
Fabulous. Thanks, Jess. We appreciate you all joining us today, and we hope you've found the session very beneficial. We've talked about the why and the what and the how to apply supported decision making. So if you'd like to stay up to date with OPG news, you're welcome to subscribe to our website. You can subscribe on the website homepage or use the QR code that's on your screen now. We're also on LinkedIn, so please follow us there and you can stay up to date with our other events. And we're on YouTube as well, so you'll find these recordings along with other recordings of webinars and videos that we've done previously all our YouTube channel. So thanks again for joining us. We hope you found it all beneficial and informative. We do have a feedback survey that we would very much appreciate you filling in. It only takes a couple of minutes of your time. We'd love to hear from you. I'd very much like to extend a special thank you to Jess and Trent for sharing the demonstration project outcomes with us today and how to apply supported decision making in our everyday situations when working with clients. You'll see our contact details are now on the screen, and if you've got, as I said, further questions or inquiries, please shoot us an email and we'll send out the response. Thanks again, everyone. Thanks, Jess. Thanks, Trent. And we'll see you at next webinar.
Thank you.